Okay, so I've cleaned the vise very well here, and I went ahead and selected some parallels that are going to be appropriate for this job, okay, as you can see. And now what I want to make sure is that the part is actually sticking out of the end of the vise, because naturally I'm going to hit the vise if I allow it to stay too close when I do my cutting. So I'm going to set this up, make sure my parallels are up against the jaws here by pushing them with my fingers, hold down on my part as I'm clamping the vise. Now look, it's always important to have your vise nice and tight, but just consider if you're a He-Man, don't go tightening it too much, because this plastic isn't like the steel. You can actually squish it, and when you do, you machine it, and then when you release it, it can change shape slightly. So you want it nice and snug, but don't overdo it. And then, as always, we're going to tap this down. Now, if you're not tightening it as much, you may not need as much pressure as far as tapping it down, and I've achieved it very lightly, whereas on the steel project, I was really hammering that thing down, okay? So now I have everything in here, and it seems to be pretty locked in well. I'm going to make sure that my spindle is clean. As always, it's very important. Feeling it is better than using a rag, because you can actually feel if there are any chips in there. I'm going to select the appropriate collet and slide my brand new 2-flute 1/2-inch end mill in there. And again, when I set this up, I want it to be clamped right about here. I don't want to run into this too much clamping that, so I want to be right about at the top of the clearance. And I'm going to rotate this around, push it all the way up, bring it down there. And I'm going to use my 20 foot-pounds on my torque wrench here. And it looks like somebody may have taken it off, so I'm going to set it back to 20. And I got my 20 foot-pounds. Okay, so now we have our 20 foot-pounds. I want to make sure my spindle is all the way up, and it's not a bad idea to take the stop all the way up and lock it into place. Then I can simply start adjusting the knee up. While bringing this over closer. Now hopefully you get a good height perspective on this. I want to go up a little higher on the end mill than just the tip. Okay, I want to use some of the more of the flutes that don't typically get used by doing end milling operations. Now that we're doing side milling, okay, I'm going to make sure I turn my DRO on here, because I'm going to need it. So I'm going to let that warm up, but I'm going to turn on, remember, I'm going to check my range and make sure high range is locked in, turn the spindle to high range, and on down to my 1600 RPMs. Okay. I'm going to jog over, and just like we've done before, I'm going to touch off this very lightly. And once I've done that, okay, I'm going to take it easy going across my part. Now remember, it should take about 12 seconds to 13 seconds to go across here. All right. All right. So now I'm going to feed in probably about good maybe 10 thousandths or so. I'm going to 0 the X. I'm going to snug up the Gibbs lock to make sure it doesn't move. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 9, 10, 1011, 1012, 1013, 1014. All right, so it took me a little long to get across there, so I can speed that up for the next time. All right, so now that I've gone across, I'm going to try to look as critically as possible, and it's really tough to see with the nylon. You have to generally take a look at it in a little bit different light to make sure that the saw marks have been machined out and it is in fact a flat surface and a perpendicular surface there. You can always double check by using the solid squares. That's a good indication, especially if you found that the geometry was off to begin with. And in this case, it looks like I have cut all the way across and I've made a solid cut. Also looking at it while you're machining, you're going to see where the chips are coming off the part. And in this case, we got this thing smooth, okay, and flat all the way across. Meaning that I'm actually machining from this side to this side, from top to bottom. That area right there is perfectly clear.